Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report podcast. I'm your host, Vago Muradian. Our podcast is brought to you by Bell. Since 1935, Bell has been redefining flight. Learn more about its pioneering spirit at bellflight.com. And before we start, our naval coverage is sponsored by Fincantieri Marinette Marine. Our global coverage is sponsored by Leonardo DRS. Northrop Grumman sponsors our weekly cyber report and our broader cyber coverage. Elbit Systems of America sponsors our trade show coverage, and Bell, of course, sponsors our podcast. And joining us now by telephone is Rear Admiral Casey Moten, the Program Executive Officer for Unmanned and Small Combatants at the Naval Sea Systems Command. Sir, thanks very much for making time for us.
Thank you, Vago. I'm glad to do it. The work that we do at POUSC is critical, and it's continuing, and I look forward to the opportunity to update your listeners on all the great progress we're making and the important work that my folks are doing. So thank you.
And it's also great to reconnect. It's been a while since first meeting at the Defense Acquisition University. So great to reconnect. Let me start off with the coronavirus pandemic. We talked yesterday to Hondo Geertz, the Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Research, Development, and Acquisition, who said that his aim was not just surviving this crisis, but fundamentally improving the Navy's acquisition game to become smarter, more resilient, faster. How are you and your team doing that, achieving that aim, about changing how you do business to become better?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first, I'm going to start by answering that by saying that I'm really proud of how my team is doing. COVID-19, obviously, it's hard on everybody. It's hard on us as a nation. It's hard on our industrial base. It's hard on the Navy. Right. What we do in acquisition, it's been clear we've understood from the beginning that it's mission essential work, and we are still going to keep pressing. The fleet's operating. We still have requirements to deliver on. We're going to get that capability out to them. We're doing it safely. So in general, we're still proceeding. We're still doing testing. Right? We can talk about some of that, but we're doing it safely and making sure that our folks are protected. The test teams are protected and the ships are protected, but we're doing a lot of good work. So, I will start with what you said, though. I mean, RDA, Mr. Geertz is, of course, spot on here. There's a lot of, when there's crisis, there's an opportunity. We are doing that, and it kind of goes from how we operate to some of the things we're doing in acquisition. So how we operate, my team is spread apart right now. Like a lot of the people in the rest of the country, we are learning how to telework and how to operate apart from each other. We are, in terms of collaboration, there's some things that probably being comfortable being with each other, you do get comfortable. So we are really doing well there. The teams are working hard together. In some ways, I probably think it's forcing us to go digital. Mr. Geertz, one of his big D's is obviously to go digital. Things like moving documents and all the things that, aren't very sexy but are fundamental to acquisition. We've gotten, I think, more efficient in doing that while we're in COVID. So sort of procedurally, I think that there's a lot of good things, and we're going to work really hard to make sure that when we're on the backside of this, that we don't forget those lessons learned. We're doing some things, some of the things that he did early on, and that Ms. Laura also stressed as far as the importance of the industrial base. We are obviously a huge part of that. We've done a lot of the things that he talked about in terms of cash flow and backlog. We are working on accelerating some of our contracting work for this year. We've already put into place some of the contracting provisions and such that were designed by Mr. Geertz and his team to get cash flow to industry, to make sure that they're in a good cash flow position. We are working on, not just on the acquisition side, but we are executing small business research funds and S&P funds, and we're working on accelerating a lot of that. And I think in doing that, it's also we're using that ingenuity that we've gotten from working remotely. We're doing some things virtually that we probably wouldn't have really thought about, right? We just recently did an industry day for the Hammerhead program virtually. Industry, feedback to us overwhelmingly was positive, so we're keeping that moving. We're focused on the industrial base, another big pillar for Mr. Gertz, as far as making sure we're in close contact with all of our folks out in industry. And I will tell you, we're learning lessons there, probably things that we probably should have been doing better in terms of keeping tabs on the industrial base. And I think a lot of those lessons learned we're going to carry going out of this. So I think that, if there's any rebounds or future type events, we're going to be more resilient and, a lot better tools. And I think we're really trying hard to capitalize on all that. But just the end perspective is just our core work of advancing our acquisition programs. My team's doing a great job. I mean, we are keeping testing going, but doing it in a safe way. We're keeping the acquisition process going in terms of contracting. Right. Just really great. And I'll stop there if you have any questions.
I do. I want to move on to the Littoral Combat Ship program. Obviously, a very long, somewhat checkered history there. 19 of the 35 ships have been delivered. The first 4, the Navy wants to retire. The ships that were going to be part of the development squadron in San Diego. Cost and long-term sustainment costs have been cited as a factor. Somewhat more broadly, talk to us about where we are on the program, on delivering capability, and on the sustainment curve, because each one of these have been challenges, I think we can safely say. And where we are, and the follow-up for that is going to be on the mission modules. But first, talk to us about the ships, and then we can talk a little bit about where we stand on the 3 modules for the ships as well.
Okay. Yeah, so from a kind of a hit the ship piece in really 2 parts. One is production, and the other is sustainment. So as you kind of alluded to in terms of the number of ships delivered, I think here we're either at or going to be at shortly 70% of the class. Of the LCS class, I think all but I believe 5 ships are under production. Right, so the class we are delivering 4 to 5 ships a year right now. Have already had 3, I think, this fiscal year. LCS 24, the Oakland is coming up. The shipyards are doing very well. Both of them in good steady state production. The production hours on the ships continue to come down. The costs on the ships are well below the cost cap. So production is really stable. The performance that we're getting from the ships at sea trials, at in-serve trials, has really been exceptional. The scores continue to go up. We're getting very low numbers of major items at trials that need to be fixed before delivery. And, we are almost as a matter of routine delivering the ships with, no major issues. So I'm really pleased with how my shipbuilding team is doing, and they're a busy group. They are just about sea trial right now. We're heavy in production, so I think they're doing a great job, and I think the shipyards are doing a great job. From a sustainment perspective, this is pretty exciting because if you walk down to the waterfront in either San Diego or Mayport, you're going to see a lot of LCSs, right? And so Admiral Brown, as the SWOL boss, talks about mainstreaming the program. We're a key piece of that. The ships are out there, the LCS constructs being exercised as far as crews moving through our state-of-the-art littoral training facilities. Going out and, now we've had our first crew workups. We're doing 4 deployed crew transfers. The training piece is really ticking. We had several ships deployed right now. We've had 4 with 2 and 7th Fleet, Montgomery and Gabrielle Giffords. With Gabrielle Giffords, of course, with the Naval Strike Missile and a successful test out of that. Those ships have been doing a great job and really finding their niche as they were intended to in their mission out there. They've all deployed with the Surface Warfare Mission Package. Those ships, freedom of navigation and 7th Fleet, just a lot of work there. And then on the 4th Fleet, our ships have been doing a good job there as well. I think 4th Fleet and Southcom has talked quite a bit about that, doing counter narcotics operations and really important work the Little Rock deployed with Hellfire. Our Hellfire missile system, and so those ships with the surface package as well. And we're making sure everything is on track for our first 5th and 6th fleet deployments. The last thing I'll say is that lessons learned. These are our first deployments of the ships beyond the first group, so we are very tuned in with the fleet and rolling back in lessons learned on the material side, the maintenance side, the logistics side, all of those things. But overall, just really pleased, and it's exciting to see the ships out there in operation.
Talk to us a little bit about the sustainment package for the ships. I mean, the concern has been that this program has been around quite a while, and we're only now starting to get into that deployment cycle. Talk to us about sustainment, which has always been something that's been a big feature of the program and a concern that's been being addressed.
It's been going well. The ships have, particularly over at 7th Fleet, operating out of their forward deployed base there in Singapore. They have exercised maintenance availabilities at several other home ports. We're using the expeditionary maintenance capability. We have all of our contracts in place that provide the contractor, the original equipment manufacturer support as well to the ships, and that's going well. I mean, clearly we're learning lessons learned from that. On the East Coast, we've done maintenance work in terms of preventive maintenance at Guantanamo Bay. So overall, the construct is going well. There's lessons learned. Certainly COVID-19 has made that more complicated, trying to get contractors and OEMs out to 7th Fleet, just, having to work through a lot of things that, the whole Navy is working through. But, overall, I think it's going well. It's certainly lessons learned that we're rolling in, but the construct is operating.
Very briefly, do the retirement of those first four Littoral combat ships affect the important developmental work that's necessary to be able to get the rest of the force up to speed?
No. And so the retirement of the first four was, clearly that was a decision that the Navy made, balancing the work that was left to do on those ships, balancing the cost of upgrading them, and the cost of operating them, those kinds of factors, right? And I think, when the Navy put out the budget, they talked about that quite a bit. From our end, a lot of our testing, we certainly have been using those ships. The ASW mission package is on LCS-3 right now, the USS Fort Worth, and has been doing testing this year and will continue to do testing this summer. But that ship's still going to support our test schedule. We made really the only substantive change was when we take the ASW package to the Independence variant, which is our second variant. It'll IOC in the Freedom variant. We're going to shift to a later ship, but actually there's a lot of advantages to that in terms of we're actually going to be able to test it on a ship that's designated as an ASW LCS, and it's still going to support the deployment timeline. So overall, I think that actually worked out well. So a big Navy decision on those ships, certainly not just from here, but it was coordinated well with our testing needs. I think we're still in a certainly a good executable position.
Let me ask you about the mission modules on the ships. Obviously, the surface module is getting out there with the Hellfire, the Naval Strike Missile, as well as the gun package that goes on the ships. But the big question has also been where we are on the anti-submarine warfare and the mine countermeasures, given that these ships were originally intended to serve sort of the purpose of, whether a surface unit to be able to serve in an anti-submarine warfare capacity and in a mine countermeasure capacity. Where are we on the other two critically important mission modules at this point?
Okay. Well, yeah, as you said, first of all, surface is, we're essentially done with surface. Hellfire testing completed, was very successful. Freedom variant testing, Independence variant tested as well. So, just good solid and just a great capability there. So the surface package along with Naval Strike Missile is really just a powerful package. On ASW, as I mentioned, The ASW mission package is installed right now on the Fort Worth LCS-3, and we are doing the developmental testing and operational testing this year. Just in the last few months, we have the first deployment of our BDS system off of the Fort Worth, and of course we did an engineering development model some number of years ago, but off of Fort Worth, our first deployment of the actual program of record BDS system. That was great to see. A lot of huge work to get there. So we're we're kind of in the middle of testing right now, but so far we're on track with our plan there, and that the BDS capability I think really going to be key. And some of the testing that we've done with the BDS array before it got to LCS, as far as like off test ships, is just been really impressed with the capability. So ASW is in a good spot. MCM, clearly, just a huge amount of effort going on right now. It's one of my most major focuses is PEO. I think, folks know that, after testing earlier, a lot of good success with the modern warfare systems, but reliability problems. We had to rethink that. Shifted to towing our sonar off unmanned surface vessels, as well as our airborne MCM systems and our Nightfish system. So we have been very busy on the airborne side. All of our airborne systems are IOC'd. So our laser mine detection system, our mine neutralization system, and our Cobra system, all IOC'd. And certified for operation on the variants. On the Nightfish system, just a lot of great progress there. Recently went to Milestone C and are in LRIP on Nightfish, and excited about that capability. Our UITS, which is the Unmanned Influence Sweep System, that's our mine sweeping system, also just went to Milestone C on that and are in LRIP, and that capability set. And then right now, the USVs have been undergoing testing with the sonars down off of Naval Surface Warfare Center, Panama City, and that remains on track. Each of those individual programs of record is doing their testing right now, making sure that the performance is good, the reliability is good. We're bringing those systems on to LCS for integration. Right now, as a matter of fact, we have our US sweep system is out doing some testing off of LCS 20 in San Diego, and all of those pieces coming together, and then we will get everything tested. So each individual piece part will be good to go off of LCS and have its performance check, and then we'll bring them together for the mission package, and still do our IOT&E for the mission package. On the plan essentially that we've been executing. So, feeling really good about the progress there on MCM. And then the other thing that we're stressing is that the systems are also going to be operating off of vessels of opportunity. So, because they're modular systems, we're doing that. And as a point example, we finished our second demonstration of the mission package systems just earlier this week. We did an underway demonstration off of ESB-4. The Herschel Woody Williams, and that included the airborne systems, Nightfish, and unmanned surface vessels. So, just a huge amount of activity going on, but it's exciting because we are now at this point bringing all the individual systems to test and bringing them onto LCS. Just a lot of good work going, and I think we're on our plan right now.
Let me go to the unmanned portfolio, because that's where you have a lot of exciting work, and some of the most exciting work in the Navy going on, both on the surface side of the equation as well as undersea. Let's start with surface. There is both the large unmanned surface vessel, the LUSV, as well as the MUSV, which is the medium unmanned surface vessel. The Strategic Capabilities Office in the Pentagon also has its Ghost Fleet ships. Talk to us about how this portfolio is evolving, given that the Navy eventually would like these ships to serve, whether in a resupply capability, but most importantly as a sort of afloat magazine, adjunct magazine for the battle force of the future.
Okay. So USVs, really exciting work. As I tell people, in terms of the Navy's surface capability plan, in PEO USC, I think we're doing 3 of the 5 legs. We have the MUSV, LUSV, the small service combatants, including frigate, and then of course PO ships with the large service combatant and IWS with the integrated combat system. So from a top level, LUSV, the plan for that is for LUSV to have that distributed lethality ability and an adjunct magazine type of mission for the fleet. I'll talk a little bit more about that. MUSV is a distributed sensing with a C4I electronic warfare type capabilities, at least in the first instantiation. Things are going well with that. MUSV, we're actually in source selection for a prototype vessel right now. We have bids in hand and are looking at that and are going to award that here shortly and get that capability. LUSV, we have two prototypes out operating as part of Overlord. I'll talk about briefly. We have another two that we're buying this year. In fact, one of those is on contract, and the other one here probably is just days away. And then, last year we had a lot of what I consider to be excellent conversation with Congress about the pace of the program and also specifically about the lethality. What I heard out of that, there was no hint from Congress of don't go do unmanned, right? There was questions about how do we get there and about the mission, but not don't go do there. So we're proceeding. That the PB21 plan that we put out is designed to respond to some of those concerns. We delayed until FY23 would be our first LUSV that will have the VLS capability. But up until then, the prototype work is really important. So we are Overlord, which is a key piece of that. We are in phase 2 of the Overlord testing. We have in phase 1, we did basic autonomy and whole mechanical and electrical systems. Phase 2, we're continuing that work, but we're also testing the C4I systems and the combat systems elements. This is a huge risk reduction effort for LUSV. We actually, in phase 2, just recently did our first underway transits. We did autonomous transits of the vessels in the Gulf of Mexico, controlled from ashore. So that's really important. The prototype effort, what I call there's obviously all kinds of questions, right? How are we going to operate the ships? How's the technology going to do? The prototypes are really key, and that's where our focus is right now, and we are making a lot of good progress.
And right, I mean, it's interesting that you said that, because for a lot of people, the question they jump to, for example, is, wow, aboard a regular destroyer where, when I push a button, it just goes through the combat system and a missile comes out. How do you command these missile tubes at a distance with reliability? But the point you're making is that these programs are really new. We'll have time to address those. Let's just get sort of the foundational, fundamental elements of this, of even being able to drive a ship remotely, for example, pioneer and iron those out, and then you're going to get to those higher order combat operation questions.
Yeah, there is. Well, we're kind of doing it all, but we are doing it in a crawl, walk, run, like you talked about. So our first phase was the autonomy, the autonomous control, and the reliability. Doing that with our two Overlord vessels, but also Sea Hunter was and is really important for that. The combat systems piece is next, and we are already working that. There's one thing that I want to remind folks about our operation. So, it is the Navy's plan that, and it is DoD policy that actual, kinetic weapons, there's going to be a human in the loop on that, right? So there's some thought that the autonomy is going to go to that. That is not the intention, right? We already have a networked force out there through the Aegis combat system, through the CEC system, through NIFCA, right? That does things like engage on remote. That's the plan with LUSV, right? So the whole issue of a fire order and that order going securely over a tactical data link to the vessel and causing that to command, that is still going to happen via those systems. That's what's going to be installed on the LUSV. There's going to be, right now we have ships in the fleet that are already firing weapons off of another platform's fire control data.
Right.
But there's human in the loop. And LUSV is going to be the same thing. The difference is where's the human sitting, right? But there's still going to be a human in the loop.
And we have a little bit less than 5 minutes to go. Let me quickly shift to unmanned underwater. Obviously, a very, very dynamic time. Orca, or what used to be Ocean Voyager. Boeing is the prime contractor on the extra large or ultra large unmanned underwater vehicle. Boeing is the contractor for the first 5. You then have the Snakehead, which is the large diameter vehicle that is under construction by the Naval Undersea Warfare Center, Newport. And then you've also got the medium unmanned underwater vehicle, which is sort of the Razorback, which it can be launched from a 21-inch torpedo tube. And then as well, the Remus, which is the mine countermeasures system out there. Talk to us about, bring us up to speed on what's going on each one of these elements, given they constitute such an important part of the submarine force's future long-range plans.
Yeah, you're right. They are important to the submarine force, but also, of course, to the mine countermeasures force. Sort of starting from the largest, right, the XLUUV, the Orca program. Certainly, as you mentioned, that's an urgent request from the fleet. That's going to give us a modular weapons capability. And as you correctly said, leveraging off earlier work, including Echo Voyager. So that program is really key. The fleet's very excited about that. We're engaged in a lot of discussions with them on how that ship's going to be operated and where, and all of those kinds of things at the same time as we are in development and then production. So, Orca is really that critical capability, and the fleet's very excited about it. Snakehead, at large diameter to provide, intelligence preparation in the environment missions for the submarine force, off of the dry deck shelter type size. Important work there. Again, the fleet's excited, and our prototype that we're doing with Newport is really helping us retire risk on that and proceeding to phase 2 with industry. So that's going to be critical. Razorback, to me, is probably one of the most exciting, at least from my perspective, because, getting the Razorback-sized vehicle to be able to operate out of a torpedo tube, right, that is, think about it, that's basically, if the Navy chooses, that's, every submarine then having the capability to be a UUV operating platform, right? And that's a really powerful capability. And then my team has worked very well with the Expeditionary Program Office at NAVSEA, the TMS 408, recognizing the fact that what we're doing on Razorback and that what we're doing in expeditionary mine countermeasure on medium-sized UUVs, that there is a tremendous benefit of commonality there in terms of systems and support and technology. So the work that they're doing with that joint acquisition, I think, is really innovative. And I think both the program managers have done a great job doing that together and keeping us coordinated. So I'm really pleased with that. Of course, Nightfish is a UUV doing well, right? The other area that I'll talk about in UUVs, there's a lot of technology and things that already are out there, but some of the enabling capabilities we're doing, what I call foundational capabilities, are important. We're doing an unmanned maritime autonomy architecture that's designed to ensure that going forward the systems have open interfaces so that we can bring in different sensors, bring in different payloads, and we're setting up the structure so we can much more easily do that in kind of a modular open systems fashion. And there's all kinds of other enabling capabilities that we're working on. A common control system, which is going to control all of our UUVs and USVs. Endurance, working with batteries and power, setting interfaces for payloads, and working the autonomy. We call those enabling technologies. I call them foundational technologies, and they're really going to be important to field in this UUV fleet. And I'm remiss too in not mentioning both of the UUVs. We have the UUV RON already stood up, and then on the USV side, we have the SURF DEVRON stood up. And both of those organizations, the fleet is already out there operating our platforms and really working the tactics, ops, and operations and maintenance and all of that. So, just a lot of great progress by our unmanned systems team and with the fleet as well.
And in 30 seconds, FFGX, the future frigate, obviously is one of the important programs in your portfolio as well. Obviously, those are sort of the last 26, if you will, or so, 20 or so ships that would have been part of the Littoral combat ship program before that was stopped at 35. And now we have this new class of anti-submarine warfare ships. Huntington Ingalls Industries is one of the competitors. Bath Iron Works with Navantia is one of the competitors. And of course, our sponsor, Fincantieri Marinette Marine, is one of the competitors as well. Hondo Gertz, the Navy acquisition executive, has talked about that decision is moving very smoothly. Former acting Navy Secretary Tom Modly was talking about that decision being announced sooner rather than later. Do you have a winner selected and are just going through the wickets at this point? Where do we stand, and when do you expect that announcement to be made?
Yeah, so I don't want to say specifically where we are in terms of the details of the source selection process as far as the winner pick, but we're doing all the things that you mentioned in terms of kind of what we had advertised was award. Even in our budget exhibits talked about July, and we are working really hard to accelerate that. We are on the plan. We are making good progress. The source selection activity is proceeding well. It's proceeding deliberately. So. I want to make sure, we all want to accelerate it, and we are absolutely doing that. But, Mr. Gertz has said, and he's absolutely correct, that we're going to do things the right way in a disciplined manner. And our source selection team has really been doing a great job working with the proposals and evaluating them. And, I'm very comfortable with the way that the process is proceeding. And it's been certainly COVID-19, right, as the teams are having to work remotely. But just like programs that are in testing, my acquisition team there has been continuing on frigate and going well. So I don't want to give us any more specifics than that. I think for reasons that you and your listeners would understand, but we are absolutely working on accelerating and are not too long now is all I'll say. And we're excited about frigate and the capability, and we got some great bids. Industry really worked hard on these, and we are excited to announce as soon as we are ready to do so. Folks in the Navy are going to be really pleased with the success of the program.
Admiral Milton, thanks so much for taking so much time out of your schedule to talk to us. We really, really appreciate it. Fair winds following seas, and hope you, yours, and your team stay well.
Okay, thank you very much, Vago. Same to you, and same to everyone out there. Your Navy's working hard. We're having to adapt like the entire country, but we're still out doing our thing, and that goes for us on the acquisition side. What we do is vitally important, and we know it, and we are still charging. So thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for joining us this week. Please follow our daily interviews with top government, military, industry, and thought leaders at Defense and Aerospace Report, and subscribe to our weekly newsletter. Follow us on Twitter at DEFAERO Report. That's at DEFAERO Report. Like us on Facebook at Defense and Aerospace Report. And check us out on LinkedIn. Look for our weekly cyber report sponsored by Northrop Grumman. For more than 80 years, Bell has pushed past the boundaries of what's possible to drive aviation forward, going above and beyond flight, bellflight.com. Thanks again to Bell for their generous sponsorship, and we'll see you again tomorrow.